She had many friends and a few long-standing close friends. There were important men in her life. Her father, whom she idolized, Fergus in her early years here in Galway, who became almost a member of our family. And then, of course, Martin, her great partner of many years, who she met during her time singing with Cushcladdy. Their time together in Cushcladdy was probably the happiest time in her life. His death, far too young, dealt her a devastating blow. For those of you who knew Aideen, you'll know that she was without doubt what the French would call a bon vivant, a quick-witted, fun-loving, sociable person who loved having a good time. She was noted for her keen sense of humor, which she displayed right to the end, despite her illness. Her life was filled with singing in choirs, music sessions, concerts. She was looking forward recently to going to a concert with Maureen O'Connor. She loved Maureen O'Connor. Sadly, she won't be able to make it. Holidays, of course, in Italy, and she loved all things Italian, speaking fluent Italian as she did, or, as was pointed out earlier on, scrambling for tickets for Mayo matches. The great pain of her life. When she wasn't doing these things, she was relaxing with her great friend John and many others at Lonergan's Salt Hill. I'll finish now with, if you'll allow me, with a small but true story, a personal story. It's in my early teens, I was given to art and drawing. I would draw things that I loved, things I was touched by. It was, for me, it was not like for art, it was a way of connecting wholeheartedly with things. Nothing fancy though, with no proper art materials, just biros and whatever paper there was about. One of those many things was a tiny shoe, spotted one morning on the kitchen floor. Even now I remember feeling the intimate preciousness of that object, how it captured the fragile state of childhood. For the child, the parent, and even for me, a brash teenager. It was a baby's shoe. The baby was just over 1 year old. Her name was Aideen. We all loved her and called her Aideen. She was years and years younger than the rest of us. But time passed and we all grew older and we moved away. Our parents died. The house was sold. And that seemed to be that. But it wasn't. Because out of the blue, and after 20 years of sad neglect, the old home landed back on the market. And very soon, thanks to our sister Catherine and husband Pete, it was back in the family. The old place needed much renovation, during which, there in the attic, untouched for over 50 years, was a box full of drawings. Included was a simple, crude drawing of a child's shoe. It had been drawn shortly after the first year of her life, and I had the poignant pleasure of presenting it to her shortly before the last year of her life. As was as was said earlier on in one of the readings, I think, from the book of Ecclesiastes earlier on. There is a time to be born and a time to die, and there's a time for every purpose under heaven. That's the story. And this is the drawing. Upside down. And this is the tiny drawing, dated March the 15th, 1968. I will leave it here by her casket now, and then keep and treasure it to always remember that we once had a baby sister. Thank you.
I'm Catherine. I'm 11 years older than Adrian, but as Frank said, she was always known to us as Aideen or Aid, and she was our baby sister. And what I want to do now is just thank all the people who have helped her in this last very difficult period of her life. Aideen was sick for 7 years. Not very sick all the time, but she's been struggling for 7 years, almost to the day that Martin died till now. And so she's had a very tough few years, and particularly in the last 2 years. And thankfully, she had a lot of people around her who just helped her so much. So I just want to go through the list of people to thank. So during her illness, Aid was treated by a lot of special people, and a special thanks to Professor Keane, Sheila Talbot and the oncology team at UCHG. Thanks also to the orthopaedic team and to the orthopaedic consultant who Aid called her orthopod, who managed to keep her on her feet against all the odds after her very big back operation. She did struggle about up to the last week of her life. She received wonderful care from the oncology day ward. As someone said earlier, Aid didn't want to be in hospital, and the day ward managed their best most of the time to keep her out of hospital. Thanks to the inpatient unit in St. Joseph's, where our niece Louise is one of the nurses, it was like home away from home, where she felt amongst friends when she absolutely had to be in there. A special mention to Mary Burke, the palliative care CNS, who made it possible at very short notice last weekend for Aid to get her way again and avoid being admitted to hospital when she deteriorated just this day last week. And thanks to the home care team and Nurse Una, who called to Aid over the weekend. Thanks also to her friend and pharmacist Pauline Staunton and her team, who pulled out all the stops to keep her supplied with everything she needed over the years. And thanks to all her friends who I've had a lot of dealings with over the years, John, Sinead, Patricia, Dervla and Ailish, who were there for whatever Aid needed, and I don't know how she would have survived without their help and assistance. Aid had very many friends, as seen by the number of people in the church. I can't mention everybody, but you know who you are, and she loved you all. I would also thank Father Charlie, who, despite being a Donegal man, gave an absolutely beautiful Mass. It was wonderful. And, of course, her friends from Cushclothy, as everyone has said, Cushclothy was the biggest part of her life for a long time. Herself and Martin, it was what they lived for, I think. And Martin's son, Phil Smith, who played the trumpet there, thanks very much to Phil, and to Tommy's brother, who came over from England. Thank you both very much. I'd also thank O'Flaherty's, particularly Katrina, who has guided myself and Louise through the hard task of trying to set everything up this week. And finally, I have to mention Louise again. Louise was known to Aideen as Denise, and Aideen was known to Louise as Aunt Marge. I don't think I have time to explain why, but Louise in her day job as a nurse in the oncology ward in UCHG, and she and her team of nursing friends, especially Martina, Bridget and Tina, stayed at home for the last difficult days of her life. She had a wonderful end in their loving care. That's it.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Frank, for those lovely tributes and for the appreciation that you showed towards the people who cared for her so well. So thanks for that. And we'll stand for our final prayer.